And the framework that I wanted to show you is Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is a front-end framework created by Twitter to streamline building websites. When I say front-end, I'm referring to the client side of the website, so the part of the website that's displayed in the browser window. A framework is basically just a bunch of code that has been written for you already, which you can use to build your website. You can find Twitter Bootstrap at getbootstrap.com. To get an idea of how the Bootstrap grid system works, let's check out the documentation by clicking on the CSS button at the top of the screen. And over on the right hand side in the submenu, click on Grid System. That will take you down the page to this section right here. So that first sentence says, Bootstrap includes a responsive mobile-first fluid grid system that appropriately scales up to 12 columns as the device or viewport size increases. That's basically all we need to know. We need to know that no matter what size somebody's screen is, the grid system in Bootstrap is based on a 12-column system. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit here until I get to this chart right here where it says Grid Options. I want to talk about this briefly. Let's break this down really quick and talk about how Bootstrap alters its grid based on detecting the viewport of somebody's screen. So we'll start with the extra small devices, or phones, for example. So this first block right here is basically saying if you use an extra small grid to lay out your page, all of the items are going to remain horizontal at all times. At no point will they ever stack one on top of the other. For small, medium, and large devices, so devices that are equal to or greater than 768 pixels wide, what will happen is that the items will start to collapse once they get below the specific device size. So let's go with large device desktops, for example. Once the viewport goes from 1200 pixels to 1199 pixels, what happens is that the grid breaks down and elements that were once horizontal start stacking one on top of another. And we'll get into this when we start talking about designing our layout. The next thing I want to talk about is this row called container width. So for extra small devices or phones, any screen less than 768 pixels, what's going to happen is that it's going to be the full width of that screen no matter what. When we jump up to small devices and any screens larger than equal to and larger than 768 pixels up to 991 pixels, what's going to happen is you're going to get a container that's 750 pixels that's always going to be centered inside of whatever device size you've got. Jumping up to the next size, any screen that is equal to or greater than 992 pixels up to 1199 pixels, you're going to get a container that's divided into 12 columns that's 970 pixels wide. And finally, for desktop devices, when you've got a viewport equal to or greater than 1200 pixels, you're going to have a container that's 1170 pixels wide divided into 12 columns. This next line right here, I'm not going to get into it. Those are different classes talking about web development stuff. It's a little outside the scope of this course. So jumping down to the next column, what this is saying is no matter what device layout you've got, they're going to divide up that container into 12 columns. The next row in the chart is talking about the width of the columns for each specific viewport size. Now you only got one width for the extra small devices. In terms of small devices, we'll just cover this one. 62 pixels is the entire width of that column with 15 pixels on either side as a sort of a margin or some padding on either side of the area where you would typically put content. So the width of this column would actually be 32 pixels with 15 pixels on either side of it, making it a total of 62. We're going to use these values in the next video to create our own grid system inside of Photoshop so that we can design while keeping this framework in mind.